Hi, my name is Shannon Fitzpatrick and I am a project manager here at NASA Wallops Flight Facility. So as a project manager here at Wallops, there's actually quite a diverse set of projects that I manage. I manage mission operations, so that could be a launch of a rocket all the way from a large orbital rocket to a smaller sounding rocket, or I sometimes also manage some of our engineering projects as well as aircraft projects, UAV. It's sort of what Wallops is famous for, is its diversity with all of our missions. So I knew since the time I was a little girl that I wanted to be in aerospace. So it's actually kind of funny because when I was 9 years old, I wrote in my diary that I wanted to be an astronaut. And I still have that diary. And I said I want to be an astronautical engineer and then someday an astronaut. Well, I'm not an astronaut, that's okay. But I did study astronautical engineering. And so when I was a little girl, I had a telescope and I was always looking at the stars, and I launched little Estes model rockets. And so from the time I was really little, that's just what I wanted to do. So my career pathway was pretty much strictly aerospace, but different areas within aerospace. So after college, I went to work for Department of Defense as an aerospace engineer propulsion researcher. So in that area, I actually researched propellants for the space shuttle, but I also did hypersonic research where I was able to get a couple patents actually on hypersonic apparatus and experiment methods. I then went on to work for a private contractor for the government, working for Missile Defense Agency work. So I did some work with SM-3, which is Standard Missile 3, and that was a lot of real cutting-edge technology development work. And then I decided I wanted to go into operations, and that's what attracted me to Wallops, because I knew Wallops was launching a lot of rockets, and that's what I wanted to go do. So I took a little bit of a different change from development over to operations. So to become a project manager, you can take a lot of different paths. Some of the folks I work with are everything from electrical engineers to aerospace engineers. My path was aerospace engineering, and so my degree is aeronautical and astronautical engineering. I have both a bachelor's and a master's. And then I started out being a researcher, so I really needed a lot of the technical skill set that I learned in academia. But then as I progressed through my career and went into management, I realized that I needed a little bit more of a specialization in project management. So I also went out and sought certifications and additional coursework to become a project manager. The NASA missions I've been involved in, probably the one that's the most exciting, which occurred shortly after I came to the range, actually was Laddie. And Laddie was a large Minotaur 5, the first ever Minotaur 5 launched from Wallops, and it went to the moon. So that was really exciting to be able to be involved with. I've also been involved in some of the ORS missions, which are also large Minotaurs, a whole handful of sounding rockets here out of Wallops, and then quite a few of the DoD missions that have either gone all the way through launch or at least got to the phase where they realized maybe they wanted to take a different avenue. But a lot of variety of different missions involved here at Wallops. So a typical day for me at Wallops, it depends highly on whether or not if I'm in the middle of operations, getting ready for a launch or a flight, or if I have a little bit of downtime in between. So on the days that I have downtime, I'm managing a lot of our engineering projects. So some of our systems here at the range have to go through what we call safety certification. Some of the systems are responsible for giving us data during launch operations that determine whether or not the public is safe. So we need to really be able to have 100% confidence in those systems. So NASA goes through a rigorous engineering development process to ensure to check out and test these systems. So I manage a bunch of those on a daily basis. So I meet with my team and we're going through reviews and documentation. But when it's operations time and I'm working on a mission, it's very fast-paced. We're meeting with the customer, we're trying to determine their needs, trying to make sure that we're doing the best we can to adequately address what they need. I'm also meeting with my team to try to determine what the solutions are, as well as actually organizing the operations that are happening, such as moving the rocket motors around the facility, or actually integrating and building up the payloads and getting them on the launch pad. So teamwork for my profession is probably, I would say, extremely important, because your team can make or break you. You can have a great team and your project can go by so much more seamlessly than if you had a team that was butting heads all the time. So learning how to work as a team member effectively is very, very important to be able to go on and get involved in this industry. So the reason I came to Wallops is because, like I mentioned earlier, I was working in development and I really wanted a little bit of a change of pace because I felt like I was continually working with my team to come up with this new technology, but then I was never able to actually see anything happen with that technology. So I wanted to be able to see that technology actually put in place, an actual launch, something actually going into space. So I decided to come to Wallops because Wallops is a place where we're actually launching things, we're actually putting things into space. So that's what initially brought me here. I first came to Wallops as a mission manager for the Sounding Rocket program. So I learned about operations and getting into space or suborbital space through some of the smaller sounding rockets before I came to the NASA range where we do some of the larger rockets. But I think the thing that makes me stay at Wallops the most is a combination of the diversity of the missions that we do. So it's always something new, whether it's a rocket or a UAV or a bigger rocket, but also the people here at Wallops. The people, it's very much like a family atmosphere at Wallops. One thing I would tell someone that wants to work for NASA is to not give up trying to get in with NASA. Sometimes it is difficult to get in to the government through the hiring process, but don't give up. And don't be afraid to come in as a contractor. You're still working with NASA even though you may not be a government employee. But look outside of what you would think would be the normal things. It's not all aerospace engineers that come to work for NASA. There's computer engineers and electrical engineers, software engineers, there's all sorts. So look for all the different avenues that you could potentially get in. I don't know that I have any favorite stories or anecdotes, but I guess a couple pieces of words of wisdom for some of the students. I know sometimes when I was going through some of my studies, I found it kind of daunting sometimes. I came from an area that was really rural, and my hometown was not high-tech by any means. So when I went off to college and I was immersed in much more of a high-tech area, it was a little overwhelming at first, but just don't give up, because you know, one day may be hard with some of your studies, but if you keep pushing, you'll eventually get there, and you'll find your niche. And so I would just say keep trying, and don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone, because sometimes things might seem a little challenging at first, but if you keep pushing yourself, then you're going to be able to open up new doors. So for young women pursuing engineering degree, I will say that when I went through college, I graduated with my bachelor's in 2001. I was one of 6 female aerospace engineers in my class, and then when I went through graduate school, I was the only female engineer in my class. And at first that seemed odd to me, but you know what? I had such an interest, the same kind of interest that the guys had, that it really didn't matter after a while. It was like we were all friends, and so we were all, you know, academia together, and so it really didn't matter. But I will say that when I've gotten out into the career world, into the real world, there has been some times when I've had to really make sure to carry myself with confidence to be able to fit in. So just don't let it overwhelm you. Always keep your confidence. Always know how far you've come from and how hard you've worked to get there, and just never forget that, and then you'll be fine.